Hey friends, before I start this episode, I just want to share something that came to me from a listener who sent in an email wondering if I would take a look at an event that they're having and possibly lend my support. And as this podcast is called Gather, Connect, Create, and as I am all about sharing ways that we can do exactly that, I am so happy to share this event in support of an organization that is helping to support women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer. Rather than tell you about it myself, I'm going to turn the mic over to the founder and board president of Savage Support, Deanna Savage.
Hi, Megan. We're throwing a party at Milwaukee's historic Oriental Theater on June 11th with a private screening of This Is Spinal Tap, because this year, Savage Support turns 11, and we're absolutely going to 11. I started Savage Support after going through breast cancer myself. I know what it's like to sit in treatment or post-surgery, worrying about groceries, bills, or how you're getting to your next appointment. Cancer doesn't pause real life. That's where Savage Support steps in. We're 100% volunteer run with zero paid staff, and every dollar stays right here in southeastern Wisconsin, helping people in treatment with groceries, transportation, personal care items, and just everyday essentials. 11 years, and the need is still growing. And this event helps us keep showing up for our community. It's going to be an incredible night of film, music, laughter, and people coming together for something that truly matters. And honestly, it's just a really fun night out for a great cause. Join us June 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the Oriental Theater. Tickets are available at savagesupport.org. Come help us turn it up and pack the house. Thank you so much for including us in the Gather, Connect, Create podcast.
I hope you will consider turning it up to 11 with Savage Support on June 11th and maybe see you there. Now on to today's episode. Thanks for listening. Hey, welcome back to Gather, Connect, Create. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where week after week, I hope to bring you conversations, ideas, and ways that you can gather, connect, and create in your neck of the woods, wherever you find yourself and with whoever you find yourself. I think it just takes little practice, but I think this is what the world needs more of. So I'm glad you're here. Today on the podcast, listeners, I'm so excited to bring you the last interview of season 9. And I have left this one rather intentionally toward the end because I think it's a beautiful way for us to enter into this next summer season. Today's guest is Parisa Shirazi Chavoya, and she is the owner and founder of Parisa Yoga Shala. She identifies as a queer Iranian American yoga, meditation, Reiki, and sound healing practitioner who has created just the most beautiful spaces all over the city for people to gather and to collectively explore what it means to heal and be transformed through all of the offerings she has in her studio. So whether it's yoga or Reiki or meditation or breath work or a sound bath or a combination of all of those modalities, Parisa offers a chance collectively and individually just to be with ourselves, to be still, to be quiet, to be grounded, to be mindful, and to come home to ourselves, to be embodied. And so what a beautiful way to start this season, especially after the conversations over the last few weeks that I've had with different guests about how we can enter this season and bring our full attention to the present moment. Rather than being off on our devices or off and running on our to-do lists or all of the things that keep us busy over the summer, how can we find the time and the space to be with ourselves and to be quiet? I want to dive right into this conversation with Parisa, so I'll leave it there, but I hope that you will take this opportunity to learn more about what this means. What are these modalities? And maybe more to the point, how can you jump in and experience them for yourself? Even if you don't live in Milwaukee, I'm sure if you just Google sound bath, sound journey, in your city, you'll find an opportunity or a practitioner. So let this interview be an introduction to the practice and a gift for yourself. All right, on to my conversation with Parisa. Parisa, thank you so much for joining me today. I am excited to dive into this conversation around sound bath and sound healing because my intention here on the podcast is to give people ideas of ways to gather, connect, and create in their own lives. And I love that this practice of sound bathing or these sound journeys invite us to do just a little bit of each of that. I have to admit, I'm a sound bath newbie. So my mom, I can't remember if I told you this story when we met, but my mom treated my sister and her three kids who were at the time 8, 11, and 13, and me and my daughter's 8, to a private sound bath out in California at Thanksgiving. It was kind of our early Christmas present. And I was just wowed by the experience. This woman set our mats up in a circle and our heads were in the center, and she just walked around us, and she was very thoughtful that we had kids in the room. So it wasn't a long bath, but as soon as I left, I was like, I need to learn more about this. I need to learn, and not so much the science of what's going on, but the mystery of it and what is happening with these instruments and what are these instruments. And so when I got back to Milwaukee, I Googled sound bath training. How can I find that? And your name popped up. And of course, I had heard of you from Moving Galaxy. That's my local yoga studio, and I know Anna there, and I hopped into your January training and I loved every minute of it, and just getting to get my hands on all of the instruments that you have. So thank you for that beautiful offering.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the call today, Megan. I love the joy in your voice about the first experience that you had. That was a similar experience for me. I experienced my first crystal bowl sound bath at this beautiful garden space in Milwaukee. I was doing an herbal apprenticeship program, and our teacher brought this woman in to share the healing powers of the crystal bowls.
Mm.
And at the time, I was in a really dark state of my life. I was burnt out from work. I wasn't prioritizing my mental and physical health. And the frequencies of the crystal bowls impacted me in such a profound way that, like you said, I didn't really want to understand the science behind it. It was more of the wow of, oh my gosh, this really shook me to my core. And I don't really know what happened, but I know that it was something that I really needed.
Mm. That is how it felt. Just that ethereal. I know there's some what's the word I'm looking for? Not controversy is the wrong word, but the how you describe what it is, whether it's a bath or a journey. And
Yeah.
I want you to tell me about that. But a bath, I can see why they say bath, because it is like it washes over you. There is that feeling of that ethereal, just beautifulness. I don't know how to
Yeah,
describe it, but it's just so cool. But tell me a little bit about this word choice here.
sure. Yeah. So, right. So, sound bathing and the work of it has evolved a lot, especially in the last decade here in the States. I have seen there be this evolution around the practitioner really is the one who gets to decide how these spaces are held.
Mm,
Some practitioners are coming from a music theory background, are former musicians, and are offering sound experiences in a very particular way. Some folks are music therapists and have a lot of intention behind supporting people who are trying to work through specific things, such as holding space for people who are in cancer treatments and pain reduction, or
mm,
are going into hospice centers and are supporting people with end of life transitions. And then there's other folks like myself who got into this work, A, because it resonated so much with me.
mm,
And when I first started the work, I viewed myself guiding sound baths, and I really loved that cleansing nature of it and helping people drop into a experience that is really accessible. You could be seated, you can be lying on the ground, you can be lying on your couch, you can be on your bed.
Mm,
There is this entry point that I really love the accessibility of offering these experiences to people. And as I evolved in my practice, I've really viewed this as a deep meditative experience. And so I started then sharing them as sound meditations.
mm,
And that really dropped people in a way where like seated meditations and some other forms of meditations can feel really intimidating for people.
mm,
The sound was welcome. You don't have to do anything other than be open to receiving. There isn't this ask of, oh, you have to clear all your mind of any thoughts or be asked to sit upright, which can require a lot of physical strength. And
mm,
so I really encourage people to do whatever the body needs to in that moment. So you don't have to be still during these meditations. You could move around. Sometimes people will shift onto their side or even onto their belly if they're on the ground. Some people even move through some yoga postures while they're at sound baths. I've noticed that they'll like do some twisting if the body craves that. And now, 4 years into this work, I really view my work as sound journeys
mm,
where I'm really intentional about starting. I tune into people's energy in the space. That energy assessment guides how I curate the sound journey. I usually start at a certain point that I think is needed for the space, and then I build to a higher peak, and then I bring people down to this really gentle exit.
mm,
And then also incorporate a lot of silence into the experience. I think silence is a really important part of a sound journey. It creates space for integration.
mm, mm. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
And the frequencies settle into the body, and people are able to then process of, oh, I was just exposed to this one sound, but now that sound is no longer here. And that space in between each of the instruments, I think, is a really profound part of the experience.
Mm,
And so, as I've evolved in my relationship with sound, I've come to really value silence.
mm. I can imagine almost much in the way of good conversation or therapy or something like that, knowing when to pause and not trying to fill the space. Like maybe early practitioners would want to need to have the need to fill the space the whole time because silence can be hard for people and uncomfortable for people. But yeah, that's interesting to use that as also part of the journey as well.
Yes.
For people listening who may never have been to a sound bath or a sound journey or a sound healing meditation, what happens? Are you at the head of the class switching it? Like, how does the switch of instruments work? What could somebody expect if they come to one of these journeys?
That's a great question. So, this field really comes down to the practitioner. Each session can feel so different depending on who you go to. I am happy to share about how I currently guide
Mm,
them. So, right now, usually in group settings, I do both one-on-one work and group settings. So, for a group sound bath, a public session, I am usually set up towards the front of the room. Depending on the layout of the venue, you will be in a circular, half circle setup around me. I will usually guide attendees through breath to begin, a really gentle breathwork practice with some guided visualization or a guiding grounding practice to drop people in. A lot of
mm,
times we arrive at these spaces coming from traffic and life responsibilities, and the mind can be racing. And so
mm,
I really make sure that we have some sort of grounding drop-in practice before I start with the instruments, because sometimes if you jump straight into sound, it can be a little jarring for somebody, especially if it's the very first time.
mm,
So that entry point of breath, I think just connecting to something that is like so part of our energetic center and who we are, it then is a really great entry point into receiving the frequencies and the sound. So I have a myriad of instruments, anywhere from crystal bowls, gongs, chimes, drums, shakers, water element
mm,
instruments, so a lot of like rain sticks and ocean drums. And I will play them both seated in the front of the room as well as walk around the space, and I hover above people's bodies. I don't touch any of my clients in group settings. However, in one-on-one sessions, I do lie instruments with the consent of the client on their bodies. And so I think that's the main difference between a public and a private session usually for
Mm.
folks.
Hmm.
The public is more of a group experience. The sound and frequency is in the space. It's felt in many different ways. You also, I think, feel the energy of the collective
Mm.
as well, which can be a really profound experience. And also, I want to say sometimes that can be overwhelming for some folks because it's such a vulnerable modality that people will emote in different ways. A lot of things can come to surface because frequency can bring a lot of emotion
Mm.
up, that some clients who are like deeply empathic and feel other people's energies can be really overwhelmed by group sessions and will say to me of, I think that I would really benefit from a one-on-one because I was taking on so many other people's energy
Mm.
during the experience. And so those clients really appreciate having a curated one-on-one space where everything can be focused on their energetic field and supporting their needs. I then am able to lie instruments on their bodies, such as my metal Tibetan singing bowls. I have some string instruments that I can lie on the body. And that can also be really profound for somebody because they feel safer in that container than a group setting, for instance.
Mm. And you have I mean, you just mentioned all the instruments that you have, that from the bowls to the crystal bowls and metal bowls and gongs. How do you, in a sound bath, how do you decide which ones you'll play? Or do you just let the spirit move you as you go?
Yeah. Nothing is pre-planned. It's always I show up, I bring instruments with me. I usually bring more than what I know that I'll play so
Mm.
that I have options. And I tune into the energy of the people who have arrived. I really am intentional about greeting everybody. And I also watch people how they breathe
Mm.
the beginning. I watch how they breathe. I watch how their bodies are settling into the postures that they have opened the session with. I also tune into the season that we're in. For
Mm.
instance, if we're in transition from winter to spring, I bring in a lot of water elements, tuning into nature, already tuning into water. I bring
Mm.
in a lot of the rain elements. And so it really depends on what I feel like is needed. I think being also a Reiki practitioner has really evolved my ability to guide sound journeys because I'm able to tune into energy more than I was when I first started off.
Mm.
So if I feel like the space really needs grounding energy, I'll start with something that's deep, such as a gong.
Mm.
I just drop the client in with that gong or some deep drumming. If there's like grief, if it's a really grief-centered time for people, especially around the holidays, I think grief can really come up to surface. So I tend to do a lot of drumming in the beginning of sessions to get into the heartbeat
Mm.
around the holiday season in like December. And I have so many clients who say, oh my gosh, my heart really needed that.
Mm. So there are then different instruments. I'm thinking if somebody had a lot of anxiety or if they had insomnia, or is there like an instrument that you would pair with each of those kinds of things that people might bring?
Yes. So, for instance, if I know that somebody is really high anxiety and they want more grounding, I'll bring in my metal Tibetan singing bowls. I'll bring in my gong that can be really bring you back to a level earth. I bring a lot of earth elements.
Mm.
If I know that on the other side, a client has expressed that there's a lot of depressive episodes that they're moving through, I try to make the experience more lively and bring in a lot of fire elements.
Mm. Like the like the chimes, the lighter.
And I play instruments a little bit more lively. I like play multiple instruments together at once, for
Mm.
instance. Whereas if I know that somebody is more anxious or, for instance, has ADHD and it can be disorienting to hear multiple instruments going off at one time and make the mind race more. I only stick to one instrument, play it really slowly, and incorporate silence and space for breath.
Mm. Mm. Wow. So yeah, I can see how important it is to read the room and to have an intake or have, some kind of touch point so that you know who your people are. Are there people who shouldn't do sound baths? Are there people for whom this would be a bad idea?
That's a great question. I think that it comes down to finding the right practitioner for you. I think that there are certain conditions that people need to be cognizant of. For instance, if you have a pacemaker, that's something that needs to be disclosed to a sound practitioner because certain frequencies can impact that.
Mm,
Individuals who are pregnant, there's a debate in the sound world of whether or not pregnant people should do sound therapy. How I approach it is that I always ask people, please disclose to me if you're pregnant. First trimester, there's some research out there that potentially a first trimester pregnancy, certain frequencies can induce a miscarriage.
mm,
So I'm
mm,
very transparent about that and leave it up to the client to decide. I've had some people who have said, oh, you know what, I want to wait until I'm further along. And also some clients who have experienced lots of sound baths with me before their pregnancy have this more of this confidence of like, oh, I know my body, I'll be fine.
mm,
I'll assess it. And I always say, if at any time you feel like you need to take a step away, you're more than welcome to do that. So people are able to exit the space. Very rarely do they exit the space, but I've had first trimester people come and they've been fine. When they do come, though, I'm very intentional about which instruments I play. And
mm,
I play a lot more gently. And then individuals who have vertigo or experience any like spinning sensations, some instruments like crystal bowls can induce a little bit of nausea and spinning if not played in a correct way.
mm,
So I think it really comes down to working with your practitioner. And I also, the vertigo folks, I prop them up in different ways. I tilt their head up. I ensure that they're not flat on their backs.
mm,
So I'm just cognizant of those things. Also, some people have been curious about hearing aids. I have had individuals come to sessions with hearing aids, and I am really intentional about how I play, and they've really loved the experience.
mm. So it really would just be somebody should do their homework for themselves if they feel like they're in one of those categories that might need just a little extra attention.
Yeah.
Are there good ways for listeners who might not be in Milwaukee who can't find you online necessarily, or in person, I should say? How does one find? Do you just have to sample them, or is there a sound bath certification that one can be guaranteed to get somebody who knows what they're doing?
That's a great question. This work is not regulated under like one specific umbrella currently. There are definitely certification programs that many of us go through, like I did myself.
Hmm.
But there isn't like a platform or a database that you can go to. I would recommend people look up in their area that they're in sound bath, sound practitioners, sound healing. Even if you Google sound healing, a lot of things could pop up for you. There are certain states that the sound work hasn't really popped up as much, and it's still showing up in certain communities. However, I would say if you find somebody, it doesn't hurt to reach out and ask some questions via email. Ask them about how do they guide sessions. You could also share any health concerns that you have and ask if they could be accommodating towards that.
Hmm.
I would also understand what the format is. Like, how long is the session? Is it just purely sound? Are there other elements that are going to be added to it? Like, for instance, like I said, I start with breath work. I also have an ending portion where I either will provide some space for questions or people processing together or share out about the instruments so that you can have a better understanding of the modality.
Does it feel like when people come to you, they come for the individual healing, or is there something that happens when you have a group together that brings about some collective healing? And if so, what does that even mean, or what does that look like?
I think that I've seen a mix of people come.
Hmm.
I think that the collective healing process is really important. For instance, when we had last summer, last June, those really bad floods in Milwaukee, I reached out to a local place, Tosa PT, and asked the owner there if we could open up the space for me to host a free sound bath for the community and invited in folks who had been devastated by the flooding.
Mm.
And so I tied into that theme of like collective grief into the session. How can we process and move through grief? And I will say that sound journeys are not always pleasant. It can bring a lot up emotionally, sometimes things that we haven't sat with physically. If we're holding a lot of physical tension in the body can feel really fiery during the experience. Sometimes clients will tell me, oh, I had an injury to my shoulder a year ago, and the entire session, my shoulder was killing me. And then
Mm.
they'll text me the day after and be like, oh my gosh, my shoulder feels so much better. And these frequencies are doing the job. Sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable during the session, but then there's a lot of healing and relief afterwards.
Mm.
So I think that when people collectively come together, especially if there's a collective experience of grief, such as people losing so much from their homes, that's such a vulnerable experience. I think there's a lot of power for people to move through that together through a collective sound journey.
Mm. I'm glad you brought that up, that it's not always positive, because one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you said this in the training when I was at your yoga shala, but also on your website, that your work is really trauma informed. And I wonder, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Yes. For me, I really think about agency. So I start all my sessions with, I am your guide today, and you are in charge of your experience.
Mm.
And so I share that you are welcome to do whatever feels best for you. I sometimes have people who are neurodivergent and sounds can bring a lot for them and they need to stim during the experience. So I'll say if you need to sit up and rock and sway and apply self massage or have tools with you, such as I'll encourage people to bring crystals and things that they can self soothe and move through the experience in ways that feel affirming for them. Some sound practitioners believe that sound experiences need to be in a very particular way. Like you cannot move, you have to be still the entire time. You cannot fall asleep, for instance. Some sound practitioners will wake clients up if they fall asleep. I approach it in a way that if the body is requiring rest, I would
Mm.
be honored for you to rest in this collective experience. So I do not wake up clients ever unless snoring joins the experience. And the snoring becomes so loud that I can see that it's visibly disrupting somebody else's experience. So I do just do a disclaimer in the beginning of I'll never touch you. I won't wake you up. I'll let you be unless it becomes so loud that it's becoming disruptive for other people because this is a collective experience. We want us to collectively enjoy it.
Yeah, that
Uh,
makes sense.
and usually I encourage them to like flip to a different position to mitigate the snoring. But other trauma-informed elements, I never set up near the exit or like the door. I always make sure that I'm set up the furthest away from the door so a client never feels like they're barricaded in a room and they can't leave.
Mm.
Easy access out. I'm also really intentional about how I do the lighting in the space so that they're not in complete darkness, so that it's not disorienting for them if they do open up their eyes and they're having a moment of, let's say, discomfort or even panic, that they're able to reground themselves by seeing different elements in the room of like, oh, this is where I am spatially. You're
Mm.
okay.
Mm.
Whereas if you're in complete darkness, I think that can be really disorienting as well. And so, as a yoga practitioner, somebody who also has a yoga background, I'm really cognizant of what I learned within those trainings too, of how do we ground people and reorient them in the space if they're feeling unsafe in any way.
Mm. Mm.
I also have done sound journeys in conjunction to events such as Sexual Assault Awareness Month at University of Milwaukee. And we've had Title IX staff members from their team present there so that if at any time somebody is feeling like they're having a trigger come up or a lot of discomfort, I point out these are the staff people that you can go to if at any time you feel like you need support. And we've had students who get up during sound journeys and they'll step out of the room with that person and they are able to process. So I'm really intentional about having additional people there as aids and supports if people are triggered, especially around events that can be a little bit more sensitive.
Mm. And you mentioned this is something that you came to 4 or 5 years ago. Had you done this before? Had you grown up with these, or you just were at that event and you had a first experience, wow, and then moved into training yourself?
Yeah, I had that first experience about a year prior to me really becoming interested in it. And what really sparked it was I was leaving my full-time career in higher education. The week that I was leaving my job, I had the opportunity to go to a sound journey, a full sound journey of many different instruments with somebody named Jordan Moon, who then later on became my teacher. And
Mm,
that experience was so profound for me. I asked them to train me. However, at the time, him and I had connected, and we realized that I was not in the mental state that was ready to receive the powerful medicine of sound
mm,
healing. And so I did a lot of self work. I first became a yoga teacher and learned a lot about myself and worked through a lot that I needed to through yoga teacher training. And then a few months later, I was feeling a lot more confident in receiving that. So I did a 6 month training in Milwaukee with my teacher. And I think that those two first sound journeys were these moments of deep clarity for me that I was not taking care of myself well. It
mm,
was this like overwhelming feeling of you need to take a huge step back and make a huge change in your life because if you continue on the track that you are, you're not going to be well
mm,
long term. And so I'm really grateful for the clarity that came through. And I have so many clients who come to me during big life transitions that they come to sound journeys for clarity,
mm,
for a processing experience. I process so much of my grief through receiving sound journeys. I have a few practitioners that I go to that I know that holds me really well, and I'm able to cry through a lot of the sessions, both public and one-on-ones. And I feel really safe doing it. It's just a safe container that holds me in a way that talk therapy even hasn't been able to hold me because sometimes I don't have words for my
mm.
grief. And the frequencies just allow me to emote in ways that is just like so deeply profound.
Do you know, I mean, what is happening in the body that allows that to break through or come through or allows us to experience that kind of richness?
Yeah, that magic.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I want to learn more for myself and delve in more into the science of it. I think that frequencies and the experience of being held really intentionally by a practitioner supports our nervous system regulation. It brings us into the parasympathetic nervous system that settles people in this deeply meditative state that feels like this soft landing spot that people are able to let go and be vulnerable,
Mm,
that creates this really rich container for going deep.
mm,
Whereas I think other healing modalities, such as like, for instance, talk therapy, it requires a lot of the brain to like be actively
mm-hmm.
processing like that logical side. And it just like can bring so much that sometimes that can be overwhelming for the nervous system. It can bring triggering experience to the surface that can not always feel super safe. I
Mm,
don't know how to explain it. I think that for me, at least from my own lived experience, those modalities can sometimes feel a little exhausting
mm,
because it requires so much work. Whereas the sound therapy is this landing container where I'm able to simply be and like let go and give into the experience in a way that's really soft.
mm. This is taking me back to the first word you said at the beginning, which was accessibility, because I feel like some people, with meditation anyway, it's like either you're great at it or you hate it because you can't stop the monkey mind and you just can't do it. So you just give it up, right? And this doesn't, you're not asking people to do anything. You're just asking people to be, just to lay there and receive, like you say, which is
Yes.
harder in meditation when you're thinking, oh, am I doing it right? Well, I'm thinking again. Okay, thinking. I'm supposed to say thinking when I'm thinking, but now I'm thinking about thinking. It's like it's too much. So,
Yes. I recently had a couple come to me and the female partner had done many sessions with me, and they brought their husband with them, and it was their first session. And afterwards, I said, how are you feeling?" And they shared, without going into too much detail, of, "Wow, this was the first time in a long time that no one needed something from me for an hour."
Yes.
From their kids, the life responsibilities, work, all the things, like, it was for so much of, especially for adults, life is so much consistently giving and people needing things from you and you needing to do something and like exert effort. And it was really profound for me to hear of like, oh my gosh, I was awake. I wasn't sleeping, but there's this like other realm of that we can drop into where you don't have to exert effort. And I think that's what's really profound for people
Mm.
of, whoa, what is this? What is this in between state?
Mm. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, if people are local and would want to work with you, what is the best way to find out? What are some of the events that you have coming up? Is there anything you want to talk about?
Sure. So I host group public sound journeys at a few different venues around the greater Milwaukee area, usually 2 to 3 times a month. People can find information about that on my website, parisayogashala.com. I also am really excited. My good friend of mine and I are hosting floating sound baths starting in 3 weeks. So we have a pool that we are collaborating with where we have everybody on these air mattresses. And so the entire session you are floating on water, and my friend Kristen and I are going to be playing on both sides of the pool. And so you get this really profound experience of the sound journeying both also outside, and the birds usually are attracted by the frequencies. So we have birds singing in the background, you have the breeze of the summer, the floating sensation of water, and then all the beautiful frequencies.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And it's, yeah,
Yeah.
outside. Oh my goodness.
Yes. So all that information will be on our website. We're going to be hosting them starting in June all the way through October. It'll be a seasonal thing. And then I also do lots of one-on-one private client work. People can do one-on-one sound. They can also do sound and Reiki combination, which is also really profound. That's the majority of why clients come to me, that combination of energy and vibrational frequency work together. And those are usually tailored. People will come to me and say, I want to work through X thing, and
Mm.
I'll be able to curate all the particular instruments to them. And I have a lot more instruments in my home private studio that I don't travel with. So people are able to tap into some other types of frequencies that aren't for my public sessions.
Oh, cool. Well, I will put all those links in the show notes too, so that if you're listening and you're local, you can sign up for any of those opportunities with Parisa. Oh, I'm so glad we could have this conversation. A couple weeks back on the podcast, I talked with my friend Thekla, who is also a psychologist, and we've been talking for a while on the pod about, attention and where we put it and what takes it away, specifically the screens and the social media and all that kind of distraction. And it feels so good to be entering into summer with just this conversation about being embodied intentionally now more than ever. It's so important that we know that we land in our bodies, because otherwise we're all over in our heads.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for what you're doing locally, and that we can share this conversation with listeners who might not be local, but who might now try this themselves.
And for those who are not local, and if you don't have sound practitioners in your area, you can also go on YouTube. It's not the same, I would say, of being in person, but there are some wonderful recordings online that can loop even for 8 hours. A lot of my clients who have insomnia, they'll play these sounds and frequencies for themselves as they're going to bed, for their kids. It can be a really great way to de-stress and an entry point into the power of sound healing.
Mm. Yeah, I found one woman on YouTube that I have really been enjoying, and she has a 10-hour meditation.
Oh,
I've tried to watch her. It doesn't look like she loops it. It looks like she's just sitting there for 10 hours, but who knows? Maybe I missed that that brief moment when it starts over, but just the fire and earth. Maybe I'll link to that in the show notes too, the fire and earth koshi chimes, and I put it on sometimes when I'm doing work in the background because it's meditative and so. Well, thank you for this conversation. I am excited to try one of these this summer. I want to get in on one of those pools. That sounds incredible. And I also signed up for your retreat in the fall. So I'm really excited to see you there.
amazing. Thank you so much.
All right, friends. I feel like I want to issue an apology for those people who don't live in Milwaukee who might be listening because, oh my goodness, what a treat to have so local with sound journeys, private group on a pool in the water. Holy cow, get me there, sign me up. But if you aren't local, do look and see who's in your network, who is in your area that can offer these things. Because what a beautiful way to enter this next season, to let yourself get quiet, embodied, without having to do a whole lot of work, frankly. Just laying there, just being, just receiving the sounds and the vibrations. And I know we talked about the discussion of what do we call these experiences? Are they journeys? Are they meditations? Are they baths? But I still really am partial to the word bath because it really is a washing over, especially if you can let go as you ground into whatever you're sitting on or laying on. If you can let go of the individual sounds and just hear them as a sort of collective, beautiful immersion. I don't know how to describe it. It's one of those things that you really need to try out, and maybe even more than once, because I had this experience when I floated. If anybody's ever gotten themselves into a float tank, the first one, it was incredible, but it was also curious. And I found myself thinking throughout the whole time, when is this going to be over? How long do I have here? Does it get darker than this? Is the music going to change? What's happening? You're meta experiencing it. But then the next time you know what to expect and you can just really sink into it. So if you've just tried a sound bath once and you're not 100% sure it's for you, I would encourage you to try it again. Or if you've never tried one, to give yourself a couple opportunities to try this experience of just sinking into sound. What a beautiful way to stay present, to stay connected to yourself, to give yourself the time and space and quiet, which is exactly what we've been talking about these last few weeks. So whether it's a forest bath or a sound bath, get yourself some quiet, a place to ask yourself, what are you noticing? And a place just to be. Okay, I will put links to all of the ways you can reach out to Parisa. I've got her website, also her Instagram, where if you are on Instagram, that's where she posts things a little more regularly. So make sure you follow her there if that's somewhere you are. But if you're trying to stay off the socials, you could just get on her newsletter where you'll get monthly updates and invitations to join her at gatherings or private one-on-one sessions. And if you have never tried a sound bath and you try one, I would love to hear about it. Let me know about your experience. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you think? And as of today, at least, I think there's a few spots left on their retreat. So maybe we could retreat together in the fall if you're local or if you're willing to travel. All right, I will be back next week, getting close to closing out season 9 of Gather, Connect, Create, and I will tell you a little bit more about what I'm going to be up to this summer. Until then, be well.